And because they're seeing mere storyboards, they think, wow, we get to kill the beast and crush its eggs? Meanwhile, in the room behind the mirror, the client turns to you and says, well, looks like you're just working the weekend. Welcome to advertising. Chapter 18, page 200. Open up, you, Heath baffled ferociously. Or have I got to burst in the door? Then he remarked to us, I guess that'll scare us if anybody's there. Soon you could hear the sound of scuffling and angry voices inside, and a few months later, the door was unlocked by Hennessy. It's okay now, sir, he said to Markham. They tried to sneak out the wall door, but Burke and I forced them back. Burke stood his back against a little secret door, his gun pointed significantly at the startled Mirchi, who was but a few steps away. Dixie Delmar, also in line with Burke's gun, was leaning against the wall, looking at us with an expression of cold resignation. In one of the leather chairs sat Owen, smiling faintly with calm cynicism. He seemed entirely disassociated from the general tableau, like a spectator viewing a theatrical scene, which offered his intellect but its absurdity. He looked neither to left nor right. It was not until we were well within the range of his solemn gaze that he made the slightest movement. Reduction to symbols, to indices. Despite the fundamental differences between indices and symbols, there have been attempts to reduce symbols to indices, or at least to show that they are more closely related than would have been appeared at first sight. Thus, we might be able to show that it is essential to words that they function as reliable indications of the presence of something, even if it is because of the existence of certain conventions that have been taken with such indications. John Locke thought of words as signs of ideas in the mind of the speaker. According to his view, it is essential for a word having its meaning to its function regularly as a sign in this way. Smiling, Mr. Bond says, "The case too?" "Thank you." Also smiling, the general put the case away in his top coat pocket. Nisam Nicolas Tablet. Nisam Nicolas Tablet is an essayist, belletrist, and practitioner of uncertainty, mathematician, trader, who focuses on the attributes of unexpected events, extreme deviations from the regular, and our consequent inability to forecast. He's the author of Fooled by Randomness, Hidden Rules of Chance in Life and the Markets. We are good at fitting explanations to the past, all while living in the illusion that we are understanding the dynamics of history. I believe there's a severe overestimation of knowledge in what I call the ex post history discipline, meaning almost all of social sciences. Everything depends on the non-experiential analysis of past data. I am convinced that these disciplines do not provide much understanding of the world, or even of their own subject matter. You archivists trying to dig up the past. Lee Smolin is a founding member and research physicist at the Penitentiary Institute for Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, Ontario, a prominent contributor to the subject of quantum gravity. He's also the author of Life of the Cosmos and 3 Roads to Quantum Gravity. I am convinced that quantum mechanics is not a final theory. I believe this because I have never encountered an interpretation of the final formulation of quantum mechanics that makes sense to me. I have studied most of them in depth and had thought hard about them, but in the end, I still can't make a real sense of quantum theory as it stands. Among other issues, the measuring problems seems impossible to resolve without changing the physical theory. What are you doing here? I am working. I said I would visit next month. You know you aren't allowed out. Ben was knocked to the ground again. He watched a large figure in purple sweatpants and a white t-shirt disappear into the crowd. He looked down at his empty hands and felt stupid for taking out his money and counting it on the streets. He read books about New York and seen it on TVs and the movies. He knew how dangerous the city was supposed to be. Yet when he stood up and pulled the door frame from his pocket and read his father's address, he walked down the avenue with almost no issues. Arcanist the Omnipotent, do not concern yourself with my origin, my race, my ancestry. Seek my record in the pits, then make your wager. As the two boys sat down, the blanket smelled a little musty, but it was soft and comfortable. "Thanks," he said between bites. Ben felt a little better after eating, but he still was just wanting to sleep. Maybe he could rest here a while on this musty fur until his head cleared. He could figure out what to do next. Before he could ask, though, Jamie lifted his right hand and made it into a fist. He then straightened his fingers and crossed his thumb over his palm. He was repeating the shapes he'd made earlier. E, F, G, H. Ben liked the feeling of the shapes on his hand, and he woke up a little bit. Some letters were easy, like C, L, O, Z, because they looked like the written letters, but others were harder to remember, like P, H, and F. When they went through the alphabet a few times, Jamie reached into a nearby shelf, pulled out the shoe and filled it with Polaroids, and slid it back towards Ben. Ben understood that he wanted him to look at his photographs. He flipped through and saw images of dinosaur skeletons, dozens of views of floating blue whales, and close-up bison, lizards, gorillas, mountain lions, goats, elks, coyotes, and the wolves in their dioramas. Another section in the box had photos of museums, visitors. They were endlessly studied. Their hairs, their glasses, their clothes. One of the photos was the old woman they'd seen earlier in the wolf diorama. "I told you, she's still here all the time." Once I followed her and walked to the keep out sign in the room and ran across my hand to hand it to her. I had never noticed the door before. My father worked here, so I stole a set of keys from the office and let myself in. Waterloo. Something Deeply Hidden by Sean Carroll. "Okay," said her father. "I can see that. There are a lot of worlds. But this is a simple principle that generates them. But there is a simple principle that generates them. Right? But still, by the time you actually have all those words, it must be an enormous amount of mathematical information to describe all of them. Shouldn't we be looking for a simpler theory, where they aren't needed at all?" "You're welcome to look," replied Alice, "and people certainly have. But by getting rid of the worlds, you end up making the theory more complicated. Think of it this way. The space of all possible wave functions, Hilbert's space, is very big. It's not any bigger in many worlds than any other version of quantum theory. It's precisely the same size. And the size is more than big enough to describe the large number of parallel realities. Once you can describe superpositions of spinning electrons, you can just as easily describe superpositions of universes. If you're doing quantum mechanics at all, the potential for many worlds is there. An ordinary Schrödinger evolution tends to bring them about. Like it or not, other approaches just choose to somehow not make up the full richness of Hilbert's space. They don't want to accept the existence of other worlds, so they need to work hard to get rid of them. Somehow. Why is the bad guy always more interesting? As great as the campaign is, it's not a world. Well, it is a world, but it's a small one, with just the one rule. You can change what's on the other side of the parking space. It's a totally workable rule, and in the next ad, the future could say a handicapped van on one side and an armored SWAT van on the other. We could possibly do a few more, but does it feel like the idea has as many possibilities as taste infringement? The point here is, the more rules to your world, the better. Vile, naughty, and wrong. A beautifully dressed woman appeared to be under a falling, flaming piano. Words do not do the spot justice. Use the QR code and watch this masterpiece, like right now. say your life is in your hands. They lie. Life isn't some trained pet that will jump and roll at your fancies. Au contraire, my friend. What is it? It is a flu on the first day of your vacation. Nature's call when you're getting a manicure. Or 3 more red lights when you're already late. And you? You are a mere puppet dancing the tune of life's orchestra. But there is one thing that's going for you. The central point sail. Because when life throws you a piano, well, the only thing you can do is look good. I've been running all around. Feel just like a ghost inside this empty town. And every day I look up and say, what have I become? Does anybody know? General, he said, where's the third party? While string theory has been somewhat difficult in dealing with the technical problems of quantum gravity, it hasn't shed much light on the conceptual problem. Indeed, one way of thinking about different approaches within the quantum gravity community is to ask how we should think about the conceptual side of thinking. A string theorist is likely to believe that if we can take care of all the technical issues, the conceptual problems will eventually resolve themselves. Communication wings, local art, filming, stage production, and filming drones, local production resource recycling centers, sandhills into solar panels, GMO plants that survive colder temperatures, workspaces, and car garages. V is equal to I times R. R is equal to V divided by I. I wanted to stay and fight, put my feet in the ground, but when everyone you've ever met says, run, you don't stick around. So travel and hop, skip from here to there, but it ended up I wasn't going nowhere.